Hello, my name is Dominic Ciesla, and this is my presentation on fast fashion and why it is unsustainable. This is the agenda for my presentation: topic, thesis, elaboration, counter-argument, and conclusion. Topic and background. Fast fashion is a mass-producing industry that manufactures billions of garments every year. While this makes clothing inexpensive, it has devastating environmental consequences. Because the primary goal of major fashion brands is to maximize profits, brands prioritize income over ethics. Fast fashion uses synthetic materials such as polyester. When synthetic clothing is washed, the garments shed millions of microplastics that are not filtered by water treatment facilities. This means these shards of plastic enter aquatic ecosystems and affect marine wildlife. Large fashion brands use deceptive marketing practices known as greenwashing to deceive consumers into thinking that certain garments are sustainable despite a lack of evidence. Fast fashion brands use developing nations such as Vietnam and Bangladesh to bypass legal restrictions found in the Western world. These factories contaminate local water supplies without any consequences. Also, these nations are a victim of waste colonialism, where undeveloped countries carry the environmental effects of Western fast fashion. The issue matters since fast fashion negatively affects the environment. The environmental effect is delayed because the undeveloped countries carry the burden. However, this is only a short-term strategy, and the debt will one day catch up with the rest of the world. Thesis: governments worldwide must regulate the fashion industry since current fashion companies' policies lead to greenwashing, the spread of microplastic pollution, and the devastation of foreign nations. The fashion industry's voluntary sustainability initiatives are a front used to deceive the public, using marketing practices known as greenwashing. The fast fashion companies' deceptions are further highlighted by their manufacturing choices, where mass production of synthetic textiles are contributing to environmental destruction, such as microplastic pollution. The environmental destruction formed by synthetic materials is multiplied by the fast fashion companies exploiting developing countries and avoiding legal accountability for the damage they have wreaked. Elaboration on the devastation of foreign nations. As international clothing companies strive to maximize profits, they move their manufacturing operations to developing nations such as Bangladesh and Vietnam. These companies do this to avoid the strict environmental regulations and legal penalties of the developed world. To maintain these low prices, the companies regularly discharge hazardous raw materials, heavy metals, and toxic synthetic dyes directly into local river systems. Companies do not get legally or financially penalized for these actions in these underdeveloped countries. These corporations dump dangerous waste into water containers and storage systems that local communities rely on for drinking and daily use. The exploitation does not end with the manufacturing process. When the Western world is done with these low-quality garments, the same companies discard their excess inventory as garbage. As researcher Ruth Sterry puts it, fast fashion companies end up burying local communities in the mountains of trash. This is the definition of waste colonialism, a system that forces underdeveloped nations to bear the environmental and economic burden of Western consumerism. Fast fashion waste colonialism exploits developing countries, overwhelming them with garbage. Because local communities lack the resource to process this influx of synthetic clothing, these nations become the global dumping ground for Western overconsumption, severely damaging local environments and economies. Economically, waste colonialism limits the development of local industries within the global south. The dumping of millions of tons of cheap, discarded Western clothing drastically lowers the value of local textile markets. Because consumers can purchase Western secondhand garments for a fraction of the cost of domestically produced items, localized textile manufacturing economies are rapidly destroyed, trapping these developing nations in a cycle of economic dependency on the fast fashion industry. Beyond the direct dumping, the underlying manufacturing process of fast fashion exploits developing regions through water depletion and toxic chemical use. By shifting water-intensive cotton farming and textile processing to the global south, international corporations take freshwater resources away from local agriculture. The pursuit of cheap fashion relies heavily on the severe depletion of local water resources in the global south, in regions such as Bangladesh. Industrial cotton farming and textile dyeing drain scarce aquifers, directly depriving local agricultural communities of the water necessary to sustain their own food production and basic daily survival. According to fast fashion, the weaker countries' communities are destroyed by refuse since there are non-recyclable materials and small communities lack the ability to manage it safely. The companies responsible for destruction are protected simply because they're working outside the developed Western world. Counter-argument. Proponents of fast fashion argue that environmental laws will make production of clothing more expensive. This will affect lower-income buyers since clothing costs skyrocket due to manufacturing costs. However, this is only a short-term plan. According to Paul Carbone, the low prices of fast fashion substitute clothing costs in exchange for the ecological struggle in the global population. Conclusion. The fast fashion industry is deeply exploitive of the environment in underdeveloped nations. By manufacturing in developing nations such as Bangladesh and Vietnam, brands avoid strict environmental laws to keep prices low. This results in toxic river pollution, hazardous working conditions, and trash disposal in vulnerable communities. Ultimately, this topic matters because it exposes the true, hidden costs of cheap clothing. Viewers should care because fast fashion creates an unsustainable cycle of waste colonialism, where small populations bear the devastating ecological and economic burdens of Western consumerism. Here are my sources. This is a timeline of the fast fashion industry from 1990 to modern times. This is an exit ticket that discusses what you have learned today. Which of the following is the primary reason clothing companies move their manufacturing to developing nations? A, B, C, or D? The answer is B. What is your stance on fast fashion? Please reply to my presentation in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching my video. Enjoy your day.